All right, so forget everything you think you know about just building a company. Today, we're diving into the story of a man who built the system of modern power itself. We're talking about John D. Rockefeller. And trust me, his story isn't just about money. It's pretty much the blueprint for how our world works today.
And that quote right there, it tells you everything you need to know. He didn't dream of riches, he dreamed of dominance. See, for Rockefeller, wealth was just a byproduct. The real goal, the game he was playing, was something much, much bigger.
So, you have to ask, where does a drive like that even come from? Well, it all starts with a very specific mindset. A foundation, really, for everything he would go on to build.
Look, Rockefeller wasn't born rich, not at all, but he was born into a world of order. From the time he was a little kid, he tracked every single cent. Every action was calculated. This wasn't about luck. It was a personal system of discipline, a system that he would eventually scale up to control an entire industry. It's kind of wild when you think about it. You've got to picture the time, right? This was the era of the Wild West. Gold rushes, total chaotic speculation everywhere. And while everyone else was out there gambling, chasing a lucky strike, Rockefeller was doing the exact opposite. He was chasing certainty. He saw all that chaos and thought, how do I build something that's predictable, stable, something that is 100% under my control?
And then oil happened, the fuel that was about to literally change the world. For a guy like Rockefeller, this new industry was perfect. It was messy, it was chaotic, and it was just begging for someone to come in and impose a system on it.
Okay, so this is the absolute game changer. Rockefeller had this incredible insight. He realized the real power, the real money, wasn't in the risky business of drilling for oil. Nope. It was in controlling every single thing that happened to that oil after it came out of the ground. He didn't want to be a prospector. He wanted to own the whole system. The refineries, the transport, the sales, all of it.
So how'd he pull it off? Well, the strategy was, let's just say it was simple and incredibly brutal. He'd go to his rivals and offer to buy them out. If they said yes, hey, they got a fair deal. But if they refused, well, he would just systematically crush them, drive them right into the ground until they had nothing left.
And by mastering that entire supply chain, from barrel to lamp, he finally got what he always wanted. See, he wasn't just setting the price for his own company's oil anymore, he was setting the price of energy for the entire country. That is total, absolute control.
So how exactly did he build this machine that nobody could beat? It wasn't just about being a smart businessman. Oh no, it was a whole playbook of aggressive and frankly ruthless tactics that made his company, Standard Oil, completely unstoppable. His playbook was brilliant, and it was devastating. First, he'd go to the railroads and negotiate secret deals for cheaper shipping, way cheaper than anyone else could get. Then, with that huge advantage, he'd start a price war, selling his oil for so little that his rivals were literally losing money just trying to compete. And the craziest part? It was all perfectly legal, just utterly ruthless.
And the ripple effect of this was just immense. I mean, he wasn't just controlling a market at this point. He was controlling people's lives. Entire towns could boom or bust based on a single decision from Standard Oil. His power got so big that even the United States government started getting, scared of him.
And here's the result of all that. At its absolute peak, Standard Oil controlled almost 90% of all the refined oil in America. Let that sink in. 90%. It wasn't really a company anymore, was it? It was more like its own economic country. But here's the thing about that much power. It never goes unnoticed. Sooner or later, there's a backlash, and the very dominance that Rockefeller had spent his entire life dreaming of, it was about to make him public enemy number one.
And just like that, the tide turned, hard. You had these muckraking journalists digging in, exposing his tactics for everyone to see. And suddenly, the man obsessed with control lost complete control of his own story. He went from being a celebrated captain of industry to a monster, a monopolist who is seen as crushing the American dream for everyone else.
Yeah, once the public turns on you, the politicians aren't far behind. The pressure was just unstoppable. Congress passed new laws, the Sherman Antitrust Act, aimed squarely at guys like him. And after a huge, drawn-out legal fight, the Supreme Court finally dropped the hammer in 1911. The verdict? Standard Oil was too big. It had to be broken up. So it looked like a happy ending, right? David beats Goliath. The little guy wins. The giant monopoly was slain. But, and this is a huge but, it wasn't that simple. Because here's the real twist in the story. By then, it was already too late.
And that brings us to the final chapter of his life. And honestly, it might be the most fascinating part of all. It's what I call the Rockefeller paradox. Because the same man who built one of the most ruthless empires in history would then turn around and become the greatest philanthropist the world had ever seen.
I mean, the contrast here is just staggering. Think about it. On one hand, you have the brutal tactics, the price wars, the monopoly that crushed anyone in its way. And on the other, he used that fortune to cure diseases, fund universities, and basically create the entire field of modern public health. And get this, he applied the exact same cold, calculated, systematic approach to giving money away as he did to making it.
So that leaves us with the big, unanswered question about the man himself. Was all that charity about guilt? Was he trying to make up for the way he built his empire? Or was it just the ultimate act of control, the final move in the game, to make sure he controlled how history would remember him?
You see, whatever his reasons were, one thing is absolutely clear. He wrote the blueprint.
The blueprint for how to build a modern monopoly. The blueprint for what it means to be a billionaire.
And really, the blueprint for modern power itself.
Because at the end of the day, that's the real takeaway here. The world's first billionaire wasn't some kind of accident. He wasn't lucky. He was a system. And that tells us that the greatest fortunes, the most powerful forces in our world, they aren't just built on chance. They're built on deliberate, cold, calculated systems. A lesson that is just as true today as it was 100 years ago.